My name is Clara Williams. I am 36 years old, and I live in the bustling heart of New York City, a place that teeters between dreams and despair. I am the chief executive officer of a successful tech company, a position that brings an equal amount of prestige and pressure. I walk into meetings wearing my tailored suits, perfectly styled hair, and a confident facade that I have carefully cultivated over the years. To most people, I am a powerful figure in the business world, a woman who turned a spark of an idea into a multi-million-dollar empire. What many do not know is that beneath the polished exterior lies a complex woman, filled with doubts, fears, and remnants of a past I work tirelessly to bury. My life, filled with deadlines and decisions, often leaves little room for reflection. I am constantly consumed with numbers, projections, and the next big deal. Each day, I navigate the intricate web of corporate politics, attempting to maintain a balance that seems more precarious with each passing hour. But on one ordinary Tuesday, everything changed. Little did I know that I would encounter an unexpected moment that would lead me to confront my own demons. As I stepped out of an important meeting near Lexington Avenue, I was distracted by the weight of expectations resting on my shoulders. This particular meeting was pivotal, and my mind was racing with thoughts about quarterly performance, potential investments, and whether I could squeeze in a quick workout before dinner. My attention was split, and in the chaos of my thoughts, I failed to notice my wallet slip from my hand and plummet to the ground. Moments later, I heard a small voice call out to me, breaking through my whirlwind of anxiety. "Excuse me, sir, I think you dropped this." I turned around and saw a little girl, no more than 9 years old. Her face was dirty, her clothes tattered, and her eyes held a sadness that seemed far too heavy for her small frame. As she approached, I could see the innocence lingering in her gaze, yet it was mixed with a haunting awareness of the hardships life had dealt her. She returned my wallet, which was open, revealing the cash, cards, and a crumpled receipt from my lunch that lay scattered inside. I felt a mix of relief and gratitude. I thanked her instinctively. Without thinking, I reached into my wallet and pulled out a couple of $100 bills, offering them to her. In my mind, I thought that she could use the money far more than I ever could, but to my surprise, she shook her head, and her response shook me to my core. "I don't want money. I just wanted to ask, do you know if there's a way I can go to school? Like any school, even an old one, I just want to learn." It hit me like a punch in the gut. I froze right there on the busy sidewalk, surrounded by the bustling noise of the city. This little girl, who hadn't eaten for 2 days, wasn't asking for food or shelter. Instead, all she wanted was an education, a chance to learn, to grow, to change her circumstances. In my moment of privilege, my heart shattered. Tears welled up in my eyes, and before I could choke them back, they began to fall. The bustling crowd around me faded into the background. In her simple request, she cracked open a part of me that I had thought I could leave behind. I could see the little girl I used to be, filled with hope despite the odds stacked against me. I had spent years pretending my past did not exist, waiting for the moment someone would erase the painful memories of struggle and longing. But there, on that sidewalk, her voice broke through the shell I had so carefully built. The conversation ended, but that moment haunted me for days. I found myself questioning my life choices, my priorities, everything I thought defined me. I began to wonder how many others like her existed in this city filled with opportunity. I felt a nagging feeling, an obligation almost, to help her, to connect with her, to change her story in some small way. But how could I do that? I was wrapped up in my own life, my own troubles, and I didn't know where to start. After a few days of sleepless nights, consumed by thoughts of that little girl, I made a decision. I would find her. I needed to help her pursue the education she longed for, even if it was just the smallest gesture. But I ran into a wall of challenges right from the start. I retraced my steps back to the spot where we had met, but there was no sign of her. I asked passersby, shop owners, anyone who might have seen a little girl roaming the streets in that area. Each inquiry led to dead ends. The world of business was so cutthroat, with obstacles lurking at every turn, and now it felt like fate was throwing an insurmountable challenge in front of me. Feeling defeated, I spent countless nights feverishly searching online for local shelters and community centers that catered to homeless children, hoping that somewhere amidst the networks, I could find her or at least glean some insight on her situation. I learned about the challenges faced by these children, the systemic hurdles that made it so difficult for them to gain even the simplest opportunities. The more I researched, the more my heart broke. I felt compelled to act, fueled by guilt and the echo of that little girl's voice, I decided to host a fundraiser with my company's resources. I pictured a vibrant event where we could raise awareness and funds to help underprivileged children. However, that meant stepping into uncomfortable territory for someone like me, who was used to the boardroom and not the nonprofit side of things. When I pitched the idea to my team, some were supportive, while others looked at me with skepticism. They were wary of mixing business with charity, concerned that it would tarnish our company's image or take away from our bottom line. I sacrificed my pride and went ahead anyway, knowing that I had to try. And then the blows kept coming. The fundraiser did not go as planned. There were several setbacks. The venue fell through last minute, and I spent hours on the phone trying to secure another one. Even when I finally secured a space, the donations flowing in were minimal. Later, I would discover that some of my own colleagues resented the time I was devoting to the event instead of managing our projects. People started talking behind my back, whispering about my supposed softening, as if caring about someone else's life was a sign of weakness. Yet, I was determined to amplify her story. I worked tirelessly to promote the event, reaching out to local media and using my connections to attract donors who might want to contribute something. As the day approached, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I could raise enough funds to at least set up a scholarship for her. Then, a week before the event, I received an anonymous message through my company's website. "I know you want to help that girl, but do not get involved. You do not know who you are dealing with." The chilling warning sent shivers down my spine. I was not concerned about my own safety, but about what would happen to the young girl if I pushed too hard. My heart raced, but I also felt intrigued. I had to find out who this someone was, what they knew, and what threat there truly was. Utilizing my resources, I began digging into the identity of the person behind the message. My research led me to discover the underbelly of the city's systemic issues, layers of corruption, and networks that exposed children to grim realities. It was no longer just about that little girl. It was about the countless others who suffered as well. With each layer I peeled back, I uncovered a darkness so deep that it filled me with both dread and a growing determination. The day of the fundraiser finally arrived, and although everything had gone wrong, we held the event anyway. The atmosphere was electric, filled with activists and philanthropists. I stood up to share my experience that led me to want to make a change. I recounted the encounter with the little girl, emphasizing the urgent need for education and hope. To my surprise, the audience responded with empathy, motivation, and goodwill. We managed to raise a decent amount of money. Still, I could not shake the growing apprehension about that mysterious warning. In the back of my mind lingered the questions. Who was I truly trying to help? Was I putting that child at risk? I was deep in a web I did not fully understand, and a part of me felt desperate to flee, to retreat back into my comfortable corporate world. But then I thought of her face again, her innocent gaze filled with hope, and I knew I could not take the easy path. As if fate wanted to test me further, I faced a crushing setback when the night of the event reached its climax. They discovered that my event had attracted a lot of attention, and somehow, just hours before we were scheduled to close the event, my office received a call threatening to expose my past. It was someone from my previous life, someone who I had tried to forget. They were ready to share secrets that could ruin everything I had built. I felt like everything I worked for was crumbling before me. The taunts reminding me how low I had once been, how fragile my identity was in the face of rumors, and a person who knew my darkest moments, echoed loudly in my mind. I thought I was strong enough to face my past, but this threat felt overwhelming. The shame was suffocating, and I started doubting if I would ever escape the shadows of who I used to be. Yet here was this little girl who had sparked something in me. I realized the only way to confront my past was to embrace it, to not hide in the shadows. I decided to take a stand. If someone wanted to expose me, then I would face them head-on, and in doing so, I would also expose the system that had produced such dire conditions for countless children like her. I contacted a lawyer and took the legal path to protect my reputation, launching civil actions against anyone who dared to use threats to intimidate those who sought to do good. I pulled every resource I had at my disposal. I fought back, drawing attention not just to my past, but to the issues surrounding the children in need in our city. The media turned to my story and exploded with sensational headlines surrounding my childhood and the ongoing issue of homelessness. But with the exposure came a dual blessing, both the revelations about me and the increasing attention on the plight of the children. The controversy surrounding me led to a larger conversation, drawing more donors and support for the very cause I was fighting for. I intertwined my story with urban education reform and made a public commitment to advocate for the rights of these children, pushing for systemic change. By the time the dust settled, that little girl's question about going to school had transformed into a college fund that could help hundreds of children fulfill their dreams. It was not just about one individual anymore, it was about a collective effort to change lives. And in the end, I found myself standing next to that little girl who had sparked the fire, and together, we welcomed hundreds of families to a new future. Months later, walking through the halls of a new charter school opened in her name, I was reminded of just how far we had come. The fire inside me was no longer born of desperation or shame, but of purpose. In seeking to help her, I had reclaimed my past, transformed it into fuel to ignite change, and I learned that sometimes, the most unexpected moments can lead to the greatest discoveries within ourselves. I was no longer just a CEO, I was a voice for the voiceless, standing tall with the children who dared to dream.